So something that comes up for me when I'm in group spaces is this feeling like if I share too much, or if I'm too vulnerable, if I say something in particular, like I guess say the wrong thing, in the sense of if I say something, I might get kicked out, I might get abandoned, rejected, judged, banished. There's such a deep wound around this fear of like banishment and isolation and being thrown out of the community if I'm my full self. And the more that I explore this and really meet it and be with it, the more insight I get into this, and the deeper I realize this is. It's not just from this lifetime. In fact, I actually don't even think that I've had an experience in this lifetime. There might have been like subtle experience or smaller experiences around this. Like I've had experiences of feeling rejected and abandoned and isolated, but really in this particular lifetime I've actually had a lot of experiences of being welcomed into any group, but I was welcomed from a space of contorting myself. I wasn't showing up as my full self. I was being who I thought I had to be in order to fit in order to be welcomed. So it wasn't ever really being like my full self that was being welcomed into those spaces. There was this idea that I had to contort, I had to be a certain way in order to fit in order to be loved, in order to be welcomed into that community. And so that survival mechanism served me in a way because I was welcomed into whatever community I was leaning into at the time. But as I've started to do more work around this, around sisterhood wounds and community wounds, and that feeling of like, if I'm my full self, I won't be welcome here, I've really come to the realization that this isn't just from this lifetime. It's generational, it's ancestral, it's potentially even past lives stuff. It's so deeply ingrained, and it's such a deep fear that actually will still pull me in a direction of like holding back certain information or holding back parts of self, and only showing the parts that I really feel will like, yep, this will be accepted, yep, this will be welcome, this will be celebrated. And this part, I feel like if I share, I'll be seen a certain way, and that's too scary. And so how we navigate this is we meet the edge. Rather than just trying to rip off all the masks and like, oh, I'm just going to be my authentic self, I'm just going to take off this mask, I'm just going to release what's not serving me. If there's something here, it's serving in a way. If I'm wearing a mask, it is serving in a way. There is a part of me that doesn't feel safe yet to let that mask go. Rather than forcing myself to rip off the mask and feel like absolute terror, that's not supportive. That's not beneficial for me. What I have found really supportive in leaning more into my authentic self, in leaning into more of my fullest expression, in leaning into community and letting myself be held and supported, and really opening up to sisters, opening up to relationships. What I found is like we meet our edge. We go as far as we can go, like to that edge, to that point of resistance where it's like, oh, yep, that's enough for me. You can feel it in your body when you meet that resistance and you're like, what? There's a block here. I've got to release this block. And then on the journey, we're like, what have I got to do to get rid of this? It's like, well, actually, that's there for a reason. Let's just meet it. Let's feel it. Let's notice what's happening in the body as I meet that edge. And then you'll notice as you just sit with that edge, and maybe you touch it and you come back, and you touch it and you come back, and there's this pendulation that happens. And what that might look like is that we kind of touch that edge and that resistance, and we contract, and we're like, oh, that's too much, and we lean back, and maybe we run in the opposite direction. Maybe we go into so if we've kind of gone a little too far, we might notice ourselves dissociating or going into protective mechanisms. We all have different ones: comfort eating, scrolling through social media, shopping, kind of any form of distraction that we use, because maybe we've gone a little too far and it was a bit too much for our nervous system, and maybe we didn't acknowledge that, or didn't have the tool or the practice or something to really support us with what was coming up. So that's another piece of it. When you're meeting your edges, you want to have some really amazing practices that you resonate with that can support you, whether that's breath work or meditation or some form of embodiment practice, some movement, some shaking, dance, getting out in nature, bare feet in the earth, journaling. These are just some of a few practices. Maybe even just like what's coming through to my mind is like having a glass of water and just being really present with each sip, and really receiving that water and just being present with the sensations as you receive the water. Something really simple you can do just to bring yourself back into presence, back into center, back into your window of tolerance. Really powerful. So these might sound simple, but they're really, really powerful, especially when you do them consistently. And another piece you can do is actually working with someone, a mentor, a coach, or entering a program or a community that really supports you to meet your edges and slowly, gently expanding that edge. And that's really what is going to allow us to feel more safe, to be in community, to be in our fullest expression, to be in our authenticity, is meeting that edge and gently expanding it. So for example, when I've entered communities or programs myself, it's like, all right, I don't feel safe to share this piece, but I feel safe to share this other piece. And so there's still an authenticity in that. There's actually a really deep authenticity because I'm honoring the part of me that is not feeling safe to share everything, to kind of just go in and be like, blah, like just kind of purge all over the space. I'm honoring my process of this is what feels good for me to share. This is my step today. This part doesn't feel safe yet. I'm going to honor that. And my devotion is to that part, to creating safety for that part. So there's an honoring there. So it's not about, oh, I'm hiding myself and so I'm not being authentic. I'm being authentic because I'm honoring that part. I'd love to know what resonated for you here. And yeah, pop a comment below. Let me know what resonated, what's coming up for you here. And yeah, feel free to share this if there's someone you feel like would really benefit from hearing this message today. Thank you. Sending so much love.